I'm Nora, 31 years old, born and raised in an ordinary family in the suburbs of Denver, Colorado. My parents were both nurses who dedicated their lives to the community hospital. They taught me that no one hands you opportunities. You have to create them yourself through hard work and resilience. From my first days in college, I knew I couldn't count on anyone to fund my dreams. I worked evenings at a coffee shop, using every break to study programming. Even though it was a struggle, I paid my own tuition and graduated with a degree in computer science and business from Colorado State University. 4 years ago, I started my own business with just a small amount of savings and a modest loan. My company, Clover Technologies, began in a cramped bedroom with nothing but an old laptop and a whiteboard covered in scribbled ideas. I dreamed of building a software platform to streamline inventory management for small and medium businesses, a solution I believed could revolutionize how they controlled their supply chains. During the first 3 months, I survived on instant noodles and cheap coffee, working nearly 20 hours a day. I knocked on the doors of countless companies, sent hundreds of emails introducing my product, and got nothing but silence. Many nights, I wondered if I was charging straight into a dead end. But in my darkest moment, I landed my first client, a local retail company that gave me the chance to prove my software's value. From then on, things seemed to start changing. Clients began to find me through word of mouth. The first employee joined Clover, then the second, then the third. By year 3, Clover had 25 full-time staff and 3 offices in Denver, Dallas, and Phoenix. Looking back, I still can't believe I built a company worth millions of dollars from nothing but my own 2 hands. My life took a new turn when I met Caleb at a technology conference in Austin, Texas. He was 34, a financial expert at one of New York's most prestigious investment firms. I still remember the moment he approached me after my presentation and started the conversation with, "I'm very impressed with your solution, Nora. It has the potential to revolutionize logistics." Caleb was tall, carried himself calmly, with bright, intelligent, yet warm eyes. Our conversation flowed through the dinner party that evening, and he asked me to dinner alone the next day. After just a few dates, I felt a profound connection between us. We were both ambitious, passionate about our careers, yet deeply valued family. I secretly thought he might be the one I could share my life with. A year later, Caleb proposed with a blue sapphire ring, a stone symbolizing faith and loyalty, right at the top of Red Rocks, where we'd gone hiking together for the first time. I cried tears of joy and said yes, without hesitation. Throughout our relationship, Caleb supported my career wholeheartedly. He'd stay up late with me when I had tight deadlines, bring hot coffee to my desk every morning, and never forgot to wish me luck before big presentations. He even introduced me to potential partners, helping Clover land valuable contracts. We used to dream about a small, cozy wedding on the shores of Lake Tahoe and a house with a lavender-filled backyard, where our kids would grow up to the sound of laughter. I was convinced I'd found my perfect life partner, but only when I stepped into Caleb's world, into the Brewster family, a prestigious clan with a long-standing business legacy on the East Coast, did I realize that love isn't always enough to overcome the invisible barriers of wealth and status. That was when the nightmare began. I still remember vividly when Caleb took me to meet his family one crisp autumn afternoon under Seattle's silvery gray skies. The Brewster family's home appeared before me not as an ordinary mansion, but a grand stone estate tucked inside nearly 50 acres, surrounded by towering, ancient firs standing like a green fortress. "Mom can be a little particular," Caleb said, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze as we climbed the stone steps into the grand entrance hall. "But just be yourself, and she'll see what makes you special." I forced a smile, trying to calm myself, but deep down, an ominous feeling crept over me, as if the massive iron gate behind us had just closed off any escape. Helen Brewster, Caleb's mother, met us at the door, her appearance so perfect it was almost chilling. At 60, she maintained a slender figure, her silver blonde hair in an elegant bun, her clothes tailored to perfection, every movement radiating the confidence of someone used to ruling from the top. Her pale blue eyes scanned me from head to toe, as if searching for the slightest flaw. "Hello, Nora," she said, her voice as cool as ice. "We finally meet." That dinner was held in a grand dining room, with a high ceiling and a crystal chandelier casting golden light. At the long table draped in pristine white linen, I sat across from Helen, next to Caleb, with his two older brothers, Charles and Patrick, both impeccably dressed, their faces solemn. Their conversation wove together talk of stocks, real estate markets, and the Brewster family's ties to political circles, like a symphony I couldn't follow. When I tried to break the ice by complimenting a landscape painting on the wall, an impressive work by a 19th century American artist, Helen's lips curled slightly. "I'm surprised you know classic art. Most tech people only know computers and numbers." The room fell silent and cold, and Caleb quickly changed the subject. But Helen's icy gaze stayed fixed on me, sharp as a blade. In the days that followed, I began to understand why Caleb rarely talked about his family. The Brewsters had nearly a century and a half of history running Brewster Holdings, a massive investment empire worth tens of billions of dollars, spanning hotels, banks, and manufacturing. Their web of influence reached deep into politics, and they attended lavish events with senators, governors, and some of the biggest names in finance. Caleb used to joke, "Sometimes I feel like my family is modern royalty." But through every conversation and every glance exchanged in that mansion, I realized it wasn't just a joke. They truly saw themselves as different, even superior to the rest of society. What worried me even more was that my company, Clover Technologies, had signed a major contract with one of Brewster Holdings' subsidiaries, Brewster Logistics. This contract was worth over $5 million, accounting for about 1/4 of Clover's projected revenue for the next year. Although I was confident in the value of my product, once I realized Brewster Logistics was run by Caleb's brother, it hit me. My personal and professional lives were dangerously entangled. During family dinners, whenever the tech project Clover was developing came up, Helen would casually remark, "I hope you're not relying too much on that contract. The market is brutal. Not everyone survives." Her words were gentle but carried a subtle, heavy threat. One morning, while I was walking through the rose garden behind the mansion, Patrick, Caleb's oldest brother, approached unexpectedly. He smiled politely, but his voice dripped with implication. "You know, around here, everything is tightly woven. Business and family are two sides of the same coin. Outsiders don't always grasp that." I gave a faint smile, trying to hide my unease. In that moment, I realized I had stepped into a world where reputation, money, and power were intertwined like a spider's web. One wrong move could bring down my entire company, and I knew they wouldn't hesitate to use their influence to get what they wanted. When I shared my fears with Caleb, he just laughed them off. "You're overthinking it, Nora. My family just needs time to get to know you." But in the brief flicker of hesitation in his eyes, I saw doubt, like he himself didn't believe his reassurances. And it was Caleb's silence that made my fear grow stronger. I began to understand. Love wasn't just about the two of us. It was a battle against a family where every word and every glance carried the weight of generations of power. I wasn't just facing my future mother-in-law, but an entire network that could crush my efforts with a single sentence. That evening, Caleb took me to a formal dinner with his family in the largest dining room of the Brewster mansion. Even though I had braced myself, I could never have imagined the icy atmosphere I was about to endure. The long table was draped in white satin, silver candles cast shimmering reflections on carefully arranged rose bouquets, but the opulence only made me feel more out of place. Helen sat at the head of the table, radiating authority with every movement. She didn't need to raise her voice. Just one look from her could silence the entire room. When I approached, her eyes scanned me from head to toe, stopping on the black shoes I'd chosen for their discreet elegance. "Discount brand shoes, aren't they?" she asked coolly. "I've seen that model on sale at the store by the train station." Caleb tried to speak up, but she cut him off, moving to the next topic. "Nora, I hear you come from a middle-class family. What do your parents do?" She dragged out the words middle class like a pointed reminder of an unbridgeable gap. I took a deep breath and answered, "They're retired nurses, always proud of their work saving lives." Helen gave a faint laugh, sipping her wine. "Understandable. People from that tier often think manual labor is something noble." The table fell silent. I could hear the faint clinking of cutlery like the tolling of distant warning bells. I kept my polite smile, but the sting of humiliation buzzed in my head. The appetizer arrived, a plate of lobster salad with black caviar. When I accidentally picked up the wrong small spoon for the caviar, Helen gave a sharp, sideways glance. "Didn't you learn how to use silverware? Around here, manners are not a joke." I swallowed hard, trying to adjust my posture, but my hands were slick with sweat. Caleb brushed my leg under the table as if to comfort me, but when I looked up, he only lowered his gaze, avoiding my eyes like he couldn't face reality. The dinner dragged on for 3 hours, every one of Helen's questions slicing deeper into my pride. She asked about my degree, then compared it to the prestigious diplomas held by Brewster family members. "Colorado State, huh? Few in our family ever studied outside the Ivy League," she said, smiling while her eyes remained cold as glass. When I tried to talk about Clover Technologies and the big project I was working on, Helen waved her hand dismissively. "Don't bring work to the dinner table. Women should know when to simply listen." I clenched my hands so tightly my nails dug into my palms. Finally, dessert arrived, chocolate mousse served in crystal glasses. I had hoped the meal was nearly over, but dread spiked when Helen set down her glass of dark red wine, swirling it slowly in front of me. She smiled, her eyes glittering with challenge. "Nora, do you know what tradition our family keeps?" I shook my head, my heart hammering. Caleb started to stand, but Charles pressed a hand on his shoulder. Helen raised her wine glass, speaking each word deliberately. "We don't accept anyone into this family without proof of their worth. The Brewsters are not a charity." Before I could process her words, she threw the glass of wine straight at my face. The deep red liquid splattered, running from my hair down to my dress, staining my white blouse a dark, bloody shade. The table fell dead silent, broken only by my ragged breathing and the choked sobs catching in my chest. Helen set her glass down, her voice calm. "That's to cleanse those who don't belong. If you want to marry Caleb, you'll need to contribute $300,000 to the Brewster family's Prestige Preservation Fund. Let's call it a proof of worth fee." I sat frozen, wine dripping onto the floor drop by drop. Caleb looked at me, then at his mother, and then he laughed. A short, quiet laugh, sharp and complicit. "Mother always knows how to make things clear," he said, then turned to me, his voice light and casual. "Nora, you know she just wants what's best for us." My heart shattered into pieces. I wasn't just humiliated in front of his entire family. I realized the man I loved most had no intention of protecting me. He sided with his mother, treating my humiliation like a game. No one said another word. The clinking of silverware resumed as they continued eating, as if what had just happened was merely part of some ancient ritual. I silently dabbed the wine from my face, feeling like I had stepped into a trap with no way out. The next morning, I woke up in my small apartment in Seattle, my mind still reeling with images of that horrific dinner. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages from Caleb. "Mother was just testing you, Nora. You need to show her you're serious." Another message followed immediately. "I know you have the money. Just make the transfer and everything will be fine." The sweet words he once whispered now felt like velvet-wrapped weapons stabbing straight into my heart. Reading his texts over and over, I realized Caleb saw nothing wrong with his mother's actions. He wasn't just indifferent. He viewed the $300,000 proof of worth fee as completely reasonable. Before I could respond, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I answered, and a cold, sharp female voice came through. "Miss Nora, this is Lisa, Mrs. Helen's assistant. I'm calling to schedule a meeting this week with you and Clover's tech team. Mrs. Helen wants to discuss major changes to the warehouse management software." I struggled to stay calm. "I'm sorry, but the contract doesn't cover large-scale changes. Any adjustments would require a signed amendment and additional fees." Lisa let out a soft, mocking laugh. "I suggest you think carefully. Not everyone is lucky enough to work with Brewster Logistics, and Mrs. Helen is not a patient woman." The brief call carried an overwhelming weight. I knew that if I refused to comply, Clover Technologies could lose its most valuable contract, or worse, its reputation in the market. With just a few whispered words from the Brewsters, my young company could collapse like a sandcastle in a rising tide. That afternoon, I arrived at the office in a daze. My employees worked hard, blissfully unaware of the storm gathering overhead. Looking at their young, eager faces, my chest tightened. They had trusted me, left secure jobs to build Clover with me. I couldn't let them get caught in this power game. Right then, my phone buzzed again. Caleb. His text cut like a blade. "I've explained this to you. This is the only way Mother will accept you. Don't let your stubbornness ruin everything." Another message came quickly. "If you don't pay soon, Mother will have to reconsider the contract with your company. You know what I mean." I collapsed into my chair, my hands shaking. I knew what was coming. This was no idle threat. Caleb had chosen his side, and it wasn't mine. He wasn't just standing by. He was helping his mother turn our love into a weapon. The next day, during an online meeting with another major client, I realized the rumors had already spread. They asked cautiously, "We've heard Clover might be having issues with the Brewster Logistics contract. Is there anything we should know?" I forced a strained smile to hide my fear. Everything is on track, but my heart pounded, knowing exactly who was behind those whispers. That evening, Caleb called via video. His face appeared on the screen with a gentle smile, but his eyes gleamed with arrogance. "Think about it. It's only $300,000. You can afford it. Don't be stubborn. This isn't just about our relationship. It's a chance for your company to reach new heights. Do you really want to lose everything over pride?" I was speechless. I had once loved him so much I believed we could face anything together. But now, every word he spoke revealed a painful truth. To Caleb, love only had value if I surrendered to his family's demands. The crisis had grown beyond our relationship. It now threatened my business. Everything I had worked so hard to build. My team began to panic when we started receiving unreasonable demands from Brewster Logistics. Changes outside the contract and beyond our budget. I knew these were Helen's opening moves. Either pay the proof of worth fee, or let Clover spiral into chaos. I spent countless sleepless nights poring over the contract, desperately searching for a way to protect my company. But the more I read, the more I saw how cleverly Helen had crafted legal loopholes. What seemed like a perfect contract was actually a snare, binding Clover and me into the Brewsters' grasp. As I scrambled for a way out, Caleb's texts kept coming like an unwelcome alarm clock. "I don't want to have to choose between you and my family. Don't make me." Another message. "Mother is losing patience. Do the right thing, Nora." Each message shredded the last bit of trust I had left. I knew he would never be the support I needed. Worse, he was dragging me down into darkness, using a twisted love as a leash. I began to wonder if I could keep my company and my own dignity intact through this battle. In my despair, I turned to my best friend, Selena. She wasn't just my college roommate, but the one who knew better than anyone how much I had sacrificed to build Clover. When I told her everything, she was stunned. "You've got to be kidding me. They want $300,000 just to let you marry him? You can't seriously be considering this, Nora." I shook my head, tears streaming down my cheeks. "I don't know what to do anymore. My company is on the brink. If I lose the contract with Brewster Logistics, I'm terrified I won't be able to save Clover." Selena was quiet for a moment, then spoke firmly. "All right, let me help. I remember my cousin is a lawyer for some companies in Boston, where plenty of old money families like the Brewsters live. I'll ask if she's ever heard of someone in a situation like this." 2 days later, Selena called back, her voice urgent. "Nora, you need to hear this. My cousin confirmed she's heard of this so-called proof of worth fee. You're not the only one. The Brewster family has forced at least 2 others to pay disguised dowries before they were allowed to marry into the family." My throat tightened. "What happened to those people?" Selena sighed. "The first was a young doctor who fell in love with the Brewster grandson. She paid the money, but just a few months later, she was told to quit her job to fully dedicate herself to the family. When she refused, the marriage fell apart quickly. The second was a marketing director who borrowed money to pay, only to be pressured into signing an unfair prenup that left her with nothing after the marriage ended." My heart felt like it was being crushed. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment idea or a test meant just for me. It was a cold, calculated strategy, repeated like an unspoken family tradition. I started digging for more information. Through industry contacts, I traced someone named Valerie, a former employee of a company that had once worked with Brewster Holdings, who had almost married Charles, Caleb's brother. After several tries, Valerie agreed to meet me at a small cafe in the Fremont neighborhood of Seattle. Valerie looked about 35, beautiful, but with sad eyes. She began, her voice trembling. "I was once like you, Nora. I thought love could conquer everything. Charles was so sweet at first, but the moment marriage talks got serious, his family demanded a family participation fee of $250,000. I gripped my coffee cup, asking, "Did you pay it?" Valerie gave a bitter laugh. "I did, because I loved him. But soon after, his mother started interfering in every detail of my life. My job, my clothes, my friendships. They treated the money I paid like a leash. I wasn't myself anymore. Whenever I pushed back, Caleb and Charles's mother, threatened to ruin my reputation in the business world." My throat went dry. "How did you get out?" Valerie's eyes darkened. "I only escaped when I found out Charles had secretly filed for divorce because I didn't have a baby on Helen's timeline. I walked away from the marriage empty-handed, lost my money, and lost my career when they canceled the contract with my company." I sat there in shock. Valerie took my hand. "You still have a chance, Nora. Don't let yourself get trapped in that family. They will never change. Believe me, I lived that nightmare." After our meeting, I sat alone in my car for a long time, watching Seattle's streetlights blur through the windshield. I replayed every word, every gesture from Caleb, and realized all the signs I had ignored. The times he said, "Mother just wants what's best for us," or "My family has its own ways." It was all part of a cycle, and I was just the latest lead in their well-rehearsed play. I returned to my apartment, my head spinning. My phone buzzed again with a text from Caleb. "Have you made up your mind yet? Don't make this more awkward." I didn't reply. Inside me, a fire had been lit. For the first time in days, I saw clearly. If I didn't act, I'd lose everything. Not just my company, but myself. But I still didn't know what to do. They had power, connections, and the ability to destroy my reputation with a single rumor. I had to find a way, because I couldn't let Clover, my life's work, be strangled just because love had turned into a weapon in their ruthless game. After the meeting with Valerie, I returned to the Clover office with a heavy heart. Time was running out. because the very next morning the phone in my sales department rang non-stop. Each call carried the same chilling message. We heard Clover might be losing a major contract with Brewster Logistics. Can your company still deliver our project? I tried to explain everything was under control, but they only responded with polite, hollow phrases before quickly hanging up. By late morning, two potential partners had emailed to suspend contract negotiations, citing a need to reassess Clover's stability. Around 2 p.m., Jennifer, my head of customer relations, rushed into my office, her face pale. "Nora, you need to see this." She handed me a printed email. It was an anonymous letter sent to every client on Clover's list, claiming my company lacked the financial capacity to complete large projects, hinting that Clover depended solely on the Brewster Logistics contract and would soon go bankrupt. I stared at the sender's address. An anonymous inbox, impossible to trace. But every word dripped with the cunning, vicious style only Helen possessed. Only she knew this precise weak spot in Clover. The rumors spread faster than I imagined. In an emergency meeting, our CFO Rachel reported, "If we lose 3 upcoming contracts, our cash flow will dry up. We won't have enough to cover payroll in 2 months." I dropped my head onto the table. My employees, people who trusted me and sacrificed for Clover, now faced the threat of losing their jobs. Every drop of sweat, every sleepless night I had poured into building this company could vanish because of a few cold-blooded lies. By late afternoon, I received a call from Thomas, the director of a large e-commerce firm, a strategic partner we had just signed a preliminary agreement with. His voice was sympathetic but firm. "Nora, I just heard Brewster Logistics is preparing to sue Clover for breach of contract. We have to pause all partnership plans until this is cleared up." My heart felt like it was shattering. I knew full well there was no way the Brewsters would actually sue me. They had no legal grounds. But just spreading that rumor was enough to terrify other companies. I stared up at the ceiling, a wave of helplessness washing over me like an undertow. That night, in the empty office filled only with the hum of the ventilation, I sat alone, reviewing the contract with Brewster Logistics, desperately searching for a loophole to fight back. Each page felt heavier than the last. Suddenly, my phone rang, Caleb's name flashing on the screen. I hesitated before picking up, only to hear his calm voice. "I know your company's in trouble. That's what happens when you don't cooperate. There's still time, Nora. Just transfer the money and everything will be fine." I bit my lip so hard it drew blood. He wasn't even pretending anymore. This was a deliberate, dirty game with me as the hunted prey. The very next morning, the monthly revenue report landed on my desk. 2 major clients had officially canceled their contracts. One of them stated outright, "We've heard Clover may not have the capacity to keep projects on schedule." My hands trembled as I held the report, the glaring red negative numbers like a death sentence for my dream. By noon, another client called to terminate their contract, this time bluntly saying, "We received a warning from Brewster Holdings. Sorry, but we can't take that risk." Every canceled contract email, every suspicious phone call felt like a dagger stabbing my pride. I felt myself spiraling, completely losing control. Some employees started whispering, "Is the company about to go under and will we get paid next month?" Their anxious eyes left me numb. That afternoon, Maria, our head of legal, came to me, her voice low. "Nora, I heard a rumor Brewster Logistics is reaching out to one of our biggest partners, trying to lure them into switching to a competitor's software." I knew if this continued, Clover would completely collapse, and I'd become a cautionary tale for anyone who dared believe a woman could build something on her own. But I couldn't accept that ending. Not after everything I'd sacrificed for Clover. Not when so many people had put their trust in me. I took a deep breath, pushing aside the despair, telling myself, they might be powerful, but I am not a pawn to be moved at their whim. In that moment, I knew I would either find a way to protect my company, or I would lose everything. But if I failed, I would not go down quietly. That night, after everyone had left the office, I sat alone at my desk, staring at the computer screen, filled with bleeding red revenue figures. I knew if I stayed silent, Clover wouldn't last through the quarter. I had to fight back. I wouldn't let the Brewsters back me into a corner. First, I scheduled a meeting with Maria for the next morning in my office. As I laid out the entire story, she listened intently, then said firmly, "We can't let them manipulate us anymore. I'll go through the entire contract with Brewster Logistics. If they're demanding changes outside the agreement, that's a breach." Next, I immediately reached out to the sales team, instructing them to prioritize finding new clients, especially companies that had once shown interest in Clover but had been blocked by the Brewsters. I gave Sam, our head of sales, a list of 3 promising businesses in San Francisco and Chicago, ordering him to accelerate outreach. At noon, I called an emergency all-hands meeting. Standing before over 30 employees, I looked into their worried, exhausted faces. "I know you've heard the rumors," I began, my voice calm but resolute. "But Clover will not be defeated by lies. We built this company together, through hard work and passion. I promise you, I will do everything it takes to protect it." The room was silent, then suddenly erupted into applause. Jennifer, our head of customer service, stood up. "We believe in you, Nora. You're not fighting alone." Their support gave me strength. I began carefully compiling a legal file, saving every email, every text from Caleb, recording the threatening calls, collecting proof of the Brewsters spreading false rumors to sabotage Clover's reputation. Maria suggested we hire an additional attorney specializing in commercial contracts to prepare in case the Brewsters tried to countersue. Meanwhile, I secretly reached out to Natalie, the CEO of Orion Logistics, Brewster Logistics' biggest rival on the West Coast. In a meeting at a cafe near Seattle's waterfront, I was direct. "Clover is ready to deliver the most optimized software solution to Orion, but I need a partner who won't use power to manipulate us." Natalie looked intrigued. "I've heard about Clover for a while, but I hesitated because of the Brewster brothers. Now I see you have the courage I want in a partner. Send me a detailed proposal this week." As I left the cafe, I knew a new door had opened, a chance to save Clover from the Brewsters' claws. But I also understood fighting back would be as much a psychological war as a business one. That night, Caleb called again. I answered, hearing his voice smooth as honey. "Nora, are you sure you want to take this so far? You're only making things harder for yourself." I took a deep breath and replied coldly, "I am not something you can buy for $300,000. And I won't let my company be trampled so your family can teach me a lesson." The silence on the other end dragged on. Then he let out a quiet, bitter laugh. "You'll regret this, Nora." I hung up, not letting him say another word. In that moment, I realized I had cut the last tie binding me to Caleb. He was no longer the man I once loved. He had become an accomplice in a scheme to destroy me. The next day, I met with the company's leadership team and laid out the plan to completely sever ties with Brewster Logistics. Rachel, the chief financial officer, looked worried. "Losing them will leave a huge hole in our revenue." But Sam chimed in. "If we keep clinging to this contract, we'll die a slow death." I nodded firmly. "We'll drop them the moment we secure a replacement contract. I need everyone to prepare cost optimization plans, protect our key staff, and speed up efforts to land new clients." I shared details of my meeting with Orion Logistics, assuring the team we had hope. No one looked ready to give up. On the contrary, the mood in the conference room shifted toward determination. As everyone filed out, Maria placed a hand on my shoulder. "Nora, I've never seen anyone brave enough to stand up to the Brewsters like you. No matter what happens, I'm proud to fight by your side." I smiled, a tear sliding down my cheek, not from fear, but because I knew I wasn't alone. I would fight for myself, for those who believed in me, and for Clover. the dream I had poured my youth into building. On Monday morning, I sat in Clover's main conference room, the same space where I once welcomed partners with pride, but today it would host the showdown that could decide our fate. I wore a perfectly tailored black suit, my hair neatly pinned up, makeup subtle but enough to project confidence. In front of me lay a thick file, every piece of evidence of the calls, emails, and threatening messages from Caleb and Helen, along with the Brewster Logistics contract they had deliberately breached. At exactly 9 a.m., the conference room door opened. Helen entered, followed by Caleb, Charles, and an assistant carrying a laptop. She wore an elegant cream-colored outfit, her gaze sweeping the room like she owned it. When her eyes landed on me, she smirked. "Nora, I'm glad you made the smart choice to invite us here." I stood, my hand gripping the file. "Thank you for coming, Mrs. Helen. But I think you've misunderstood the purpose of today's meeting." Helen sat down across from me, crossing her legs, her eyes filled with disdain. "You're not planning to stall again, are you? Mother's patience is running thin," Caleb said, his voice flat as if discussing the weather. I met his gaze steadily, then took the engagement ring out of a small box on the table and slid it toward him. "I'm giving you this ring back. I will never accept a marriage bought and sold. And I will never let myself become a puppet for your family to control." For a moment, the room fell silent. I could hear Caleb's heavy breathing, but he still wouldn't meet my eyes. Helen waved her hand dismissively, sneering. "Fine, if you won't follow our family's rules. Are you ready for the consequences? Clover won't survive without Brewster Logistics." I drew a deep breath and pushed the thick file across the table to her. "This is a copy of all the evidence documenting your coercion, threats, and abuse of our business relationship. If you keep interfering with my company, I'm prepared to share everything with my lawyers, the media, and regulatory authorities." Helen's face shifted from arrogance to rage, the corner of her mouth twitching. Caleb lunged forward to speak, but I raised my hand to stop him. "Don't. I'm not finished." I opened another file, laying out the contract clauses Brewster Logistics had violated. "You deliberately demanded changes outside the signed agreement, threatened to kill the project unless I paid $300,000. That's a breach of fair competition laws and constitutes commercial extortion. My lawyer has already filed a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission. If you persist, I will let the world know exactly how the Brewster family treats women they deem unworthy." The room grew suffocatingly tense. I could feel Helen fighting to keep her composure, while Caleb had gone pale, panic flashing across his eyes. Charles, Caleb's brother, sat frozen, his face a mix of surprise and fear. I stood, my voice calm but firm. "I'm officially announcing, as of today, Clover is terminating all cooperation with Brewster Logistics. All contract termination documents have been prepared by my attorney. I have no further ties to the Brewster family, professionally or personally." Helen's assistant raised a hand, as if to note something, but Helen shot her a glare to stay silent. Helen's eyes darkened, her voice dropping to a hiss. "You think a pathetic girl like you can stand against my family?" I locked eyes with her, feeling my hands trembling but keeping my voice steady. "I'm not trying to fight anyone. I just won't let myself be trampled. If you keep coming after me, I will bring the truth into the light." Helen shot up, her chair crashing backward. She leaned in close, voice dripping with contempt. "You just cut off your own future, you know that." I met her with a calm smile. "I just chose freedom. And I'd rather lose everything than forfeit my self-respect." Caleb finally found his voice, shouting angrily, "Nora, you're destroying your own future." I turned to him, unflinching. "My future doesn't need a man who won't stand up for the woman he claims to love." I opened the conference room door and gestured firmly. "This meeting is over, please leave." As the door closed behind them, I slumped into my chair, my entire body limp from the tension. But I knew I had won, at least in the battle to reclaim control over my own life. Just 3 days after that fateful meeting, news that Clover had ended its partnership with Brewster Logistics spread throughout Seattle's business circles. Some partners grew worried, emailing to ask if the company was still stable. Others even paused projects to monitor the situation. I knew I would pay a price for my decision, not because I was wrong, but because I had dared to say no to the powerful. Within 2 weeks, Clover lost 3 contracts worth more than $2 million. Projected revenue for the next quarter dropped by nearly 30%. The accounting department warned, if we didn't secure new contracts within 3 months, the company would face a liquidity crisis. Those cold, harsh numbers felt like repeated blows, but I still had no regrets. Every morning I looked in the mirror and reminded myself, I chose freedom. Nothing is worth more than self-respect. Yet, just when everything seemed darkest, glimmers of hope began to appear. Orion Logistics, the partner I had approached before, reached out, requesting a face-to-face meeting. They shared that they'd heard how I stood up to the Brewster family and admired Clover's transparency and resolve. During the meeting, Director Natalie said bluntly, "We don't want suppliers who only know how to bow their heads. We need partners who will defend their principles." Clover has that. A week later, Clover officially signed a 3-year contract with Orion, with a value even greater than the old agreement with Brewster Logistics. The good news spread quickly throughout the company, lifting everyone's spirits after so many bleak days. Standing before my team to announce the new deal, I saw their bright faces and knew the losses we endured were simply the price of finding the right path. Around the same time, I received messages from Caleb. The first was just 3 words. I miss you. The second read, I was wrong. Mom went too far. I let you get hurt. Please give me a chance to make it right. I stared at the words on my phone, emotions rising. Pain, regret, then fading away. I remembered the moments Caleb laughed while his mother humiliated me. The messages pressuring me to pay just to be accepted. It was all too late. I had no love left for someone who stood by silently as I was degraded. I replied simply, I hope you find someone who fits your family. His final message came right after, you'll regret this. But I just smiled and turned off my phone. There was no more fear, no more clinging. I had found myself again. Even more unexpectedly, one afternoon I received a call from an unfamiliar number. It was David Brewster, Caleb's father. His voice was low and shaky. Nora, this is David, Caleb's father. I want to apologize for what my wife did to you. I stayed silent for too long, letting Helen dominate everything, even when she hurt good people like you. I stayed silent as he told me he had moved out of the Brewster mansion and rented a small apartment in Bellevue. I've started therapy, Nora. I want to understand why I let Helen destroy every relationship around me. You made me realize I need to change. His voice grew hoarse. I know no apology will ever be enough, but I hope you understand. I truly admire your courage. If there's anything I can do to help, Clover, please let me know. After hanging up, I sat for a long time, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. I didn't know if David could truly change, but at least by standing up, I had planted a seed of change in the Brewster family itself. 3 months later, Clover not only survived but grew stronger than ever. Many former clients returned after hearing Clover had secured a major contract with Orion. Local media began mentioning Clover as an example of a young company committed to integrity and ethical business practices. In an interview, I shared, "No contract, no matter how big, is worth the price of your honor." Occasionally, I still received scattered messages from Caleb, but they evoked nothing but calm detachment. I had stepped out of their shadow and found my own path. 6 months after I'd completely severed ties with the Brewster family, Clover was not just surviving but thriving beyond expectations. The contract with Orion Logistics became a launchpad, helping the company expand its client network across the West Coast. Clover's employees worked more united than ever, like warriors who had weathered a great storm together. During the quarterly summary meeting, I stood before the entire Clover team, sharing the revenue figures showing a 35% growth compared to the same period the previous year. No one said a word at first, but as I looked up, a wave of applause burst out, lasting so long I had to close my eyes to keep from crying. I knew what I had achieved wasn't just numbers on a financial report, but the trust and pride of the whole team. Alongside the leadership team, I worked quickly to establish Clover's new code of business ethics, emphasizing three core values: transparency, respect, and zero tolerance for any form of coercion or abuse of power. I wanted every employee, partner, and client to know that Clover would never put profit above human dignity. This policy was widely shared and posted right in the company's main lobby. During contract signings, I always emphasized, we are ready to walk away from any partnership if asked to do something against our ethical principles. At first, a few clients were surprised, even uneasy, but most expressed respect, and gradually, many came to see Clover as a model of steadfastness. I even proactively organized experience sharing sessions, inviting other startups to hear about the journey of staying true to values through turbulent times. At a seminar in Seattle, I told over 200 young entrepreneurs, we live in a world where promises of power and money can tempt you to trade yourself away. But trust me, success built on submission is nothing but an empty shell. If you have to sell your self-respect to keep a relationship or a contract, the real cost is higher than any amount of money. The stories I shared quickly spread across social media, and Clover began to be mentioned in the startup community as proof that honest business can still succeed. Sometimes I received messages from strangers. Your story gave me the courage to leave a toxic boss. Or, thank you, now I understand my worth can't be measured by money. My greatest happiness wasn't just valuable contracts, but seeing the Clover team confident, respected, and knowing this company was built on a foundation I would never compromise. As for Caleb, he tried a few times to reach out, sending flowers, emails, and even waiting outside the office. But I felt nothing but calm. I held no resentment, only gratitude for the lessons that no classroom could have taught me. The last time he tried to meet, I simply said, I hope you find your own path, but that path will no longer include me. A few months later, I heard that David Brewster, Caleb's father, had officially filed for divorce from Helen. In a short email he sent me, he wrote, "Thank you for giving me the courage to fix my life. I hope that one day I'll have the chance to work with Clover, not because of power, but out of mutual respect." I realized that my decisive actions not only saved myself, but also sparked change in others who had long been trapped by fear. Thanks to that, the dream of building a company that is not just successful but also humane was no longer a fantasy. One spring evening, standing on the 20th floor balcony of Clover's office, looking out at Seattle sparkling with lights, I softly told myself, no one has the right to decide your worth except you. I had lost many things to reach this day: love, innocence, and sweet dreams of a perfect relationship. But I had regained what mattered most: my confidence, honor, and faith in my ability to stand strong in any storm. Though the future will bring more challenges, I am certain of one thing: true success can never come at the cost of dignity. Always hold firm to your values, because only when you don't sell your self-respect will you find lasting happiness and pride in the path you've chosen. My story is not just a journey of resisting coercion from a powerful family, but also a testament to the value of self-respect. True success cannot be bought with honor, and any relationship or opportunity that demands your submission is never worth it. It was steadfastness that helped me regain control of my life, grow my company stronger, and find happiness by learning to define your worth, but you. What do you think about Nora's story and her choices? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss more dramatic and meaningful family stories in upcoming videos.